Well, there is a deadline looming tonight that could have serious consequences for commerce across this country. At midnight Eastern, Canada's 2 national rail lines could be shut down. Talks between the union for more than 9,000 rail workers, CN Rail and Canadian Pacific Kansas City, are down to the wire now. And if there is no deal by midnight Eastern, workers could be on strike or locked out. Canada's Labour Minister is in Calgary today to urge the parties to come to an agreement because that shutdown would have major ripple effects for businesses and consumers Canada-wide. And Scott Peterson has been tracking the details on this one for us and the potential fallout here, Scott. If there is a strike or there is a lockout and these rail lines are not moving, that will have consequences down the line.
Yeah, it's almost incomprehensible. We have never had both of Canada's major railways shut down at the same time, so the consequences could be dire, could be devastating as far as a lot of industries out there. We've talked about supply side disruptions as far as goods not getting where they need to be, and there's industries and or experts in a lot of different industries saying this could increase prices in car parts, in widgets, in things that are imported into the country, and food itself. So there's a lot of concern about a lack of goods being shipped and prices, price hikes that might rise as well. We're hearing as well from different industries, experts from industries, from automobiles to agriculture, and one in the agriculture industry is in particularly a precarious situation because some of that material needs to get to its market before it spoils, and there's not spoilage or storage space for it. Here's a farmer in the lentil business sort of itemizing how difficult it is for farmers in that industry in particular.
97% of the lentils we grow has to find their way to places like India and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. So how do they get there? Well, they have to go by rail to Tidewater, and we're captive to the railroads, which are really a duopoly. So an interruption in service really means then that our outlet to the world is cut off.
And he's speaking for perishable goods like lentils, but this is reflected in a lot of the industry. And some of the main points that we've been hitting this morning, in fact, all week leading up to this potential strike starting tomorrow, that railways move over $1 billion worth of goods each and every day. That's about $400 billion per year. 2/3 of all freight is handled by rail. Railways responsible for half of Canada's entire exports, whether they be grain, chemicals, minerals, oil, lumber, you name it. And also we're heading into harvest season, as we heard from that lentil farmer. Over 90% of grain in this country is moved by rail, and over 75% of fertilizer, same thing. And CN and CPKC, because of amalgamations, now own more than 75% of all the tracks out there. So this potential disruption could affect, as you've been saying, Jacqueline, thousands of businesses across the country.
Okay, so we will be, of course, watching for any movement on those negotiations. We've also been watching for any impact ahead of the possibility of a strike or lockout. And it sounds as though one of these global shipping companies that we've been following got a bit ahead of itself in its preparation.
Yeah, in particular with Maersk. We've have an update from them, and also we've been reporting that the container shipping has been halted from that. What they're saying now is that they're modifying that statement to CBC's, that they're not all container shipping has in fact been halted. They're making contingency plans and also working with industry partners as we go. And we're also seeing other industries scrambling as well. There's companies in Calgary dealing directly with trucking companies trying to bypass rail altogether. But one truck or one rail one rail train, I should say,
the whole thing
is 300 trucks put together. So there's a lot of emphasis on that. And we're also hearing from the Labour Minister, as you mentioned, is in Calgary today, trying to bring the Teamsters and both sides together. But the latest from the Teamsters on their website saying they're, quote, unfortunately, the CN and CPKC continue to demonstrate their unwillingness to, quote, respect Teamster members. And so this is language that both sides are far apart, and that deadline is ticking for tomorrow.
Okay, Scott, thanks so much for the latest on all of that. Appreciate it. A major rail stoppage, of course, it could also have a crippling impact on commuters in several major Canadian cities. Roughly 32,000 people in Vancouver, Montreal and Toronto would have to find alternate modes of transportation. In Ontario, Metrolink says GO train services will grind to a halt on the Milton and Hamilton lines if a strike goes ahead. Megan Fitzpatrick is at Toronto's Union Union Station this morning following this angle. So, Megan, what more can you tell us about the potential impact here and how aware commuters are about this possibility?
Yeah, well, Metrolinx is saying they are closely monitoring the situation. That's the agency that operates GO train services, GO buses, and they are warning commuters that there could be service interruptions tomorrow. As you mentioned, those disruptions would be on the Milton line and also at the Hamilton GO station specifically. Now, not the entire Lakeshore West line would be interrupted, but commuters who rely on the Hamilton GO station specifically wouldn't have that option, wouldn't be able to get on there. So Metrolinx is warning that customers could still use the West Harbour station as well as the Aldershot station. Buses would still be an option as well. And for those that rely on the Milton line, that serves a lot of people who live in Mississauga to the west of Toronto. They'd have to look for alternates, Jacqueline, like the Lakeshore West line or the Kitchener line, if they're able to get to those stations. So those commuters could be impacted. Anyone relying on the Up Express, though, to get to and from Pearson Airport, that would not be affected. So people should be aware of that. But definitely this could cause some headaches for people if this work stoppage goes ahead tomorrow. CBC spoke to some commuters yesterday about the impending disruptions, possibly. Here's some of what they're saying.
This week I'm with my kids and they're coming down to the camp. If the strike goes on, it would really affect us a lot. I mean, these camps would be canceled and I wouldn't know how I would get down to work.
We take the train every day and I don't want to drive in on Gardiner for sure. So I guess we'll have to stay home.
I'd either take like a different train, which means at least an hour on the bus to get to a different GO station, or have to commute like by car on the Gardiner, which no one wants to do.
Now, as you mentioned, Jacqueline, commuters in the Greater Toronto area may not be the only ones affected. Commuters in Vancouver and Montreal as well could see their services interrupted. In Vancouver, those who use the West Coast Express could have some service interruptions. But again, for people here in the Toronto area, it could be especially a headache. Those that live southwest of Toronto in the Hamilton area, driving not a great option because the Gardiner Expressway is currently under construction. And so that highway in and out of the city is pretty clogged. That's not an attractive alternative for people. So a lot of commuters, I suspect today, keeping their fingers crossed that they will be getting in and out of downtown Toronto smoothly tomorrow. Jacqueline?
Yeah, no doubt, Megan. Thanks so much. That's Megan Fitzpatrick in Toronto.